Good evening and welcome to Ask Me Anything from the Baltimore WordPress Meetup. This is our meetup for April 4th, 2023. The Baltimore WordPress Meetup group presents information, products, and services which you should use at your own risk. Just because we show a plugin, theme, etc., doesn't mean that it's an official WordPress endorsement of it. Most of us are attending from home, so please make sure to keep everything family friendly. The Baltimore WordPress Meetup does our best to follow the community standards. That means that if you break these community standards, you will be booted from the meeting. The community standards are no spamming or spammer-like behavior. Make sure to respect that we have people of all different skill levels and backgrounds here. And of course, generally, don't be a jerk. I'm Jen. I own Enfira.com. I have been a WordPress developer for over a decade, and I have worked on hundreds of different websites. I've built, remodeled, cleaned up, added functionality to, and done security work over the years. So I have a pretty broad base of knowledge to pull from. If you'd like to know more about me and what I do, I have popped a link into the chat, which is enfira.com/help. We will be using the chat for questions and to queue people up. So go ahead and find your Zoom chat and open it up. Everyone will start out muted, and only when it's your turn will you be unmuted. Of course, no one knows everything, but as a group, we'll do our best to help and answer your questions. We are to the questions now. We have questions that were pre-submitted from Michaela, Sally, Victoria, Paul, Lori, and Joseph. So if you are here, please type here in the chat. Excellent. We have Paul here and we have Joseph. So Paul's question is, which theme will be best support what may become a high volume discussion forum? And then a second part to the question, is there a plugin that will allow someone to track and document progress as they are building a house or building of some sort? The goal is to be able to share progression during the course of a building. So, Paul, I will click the unmute for you as soon as I find it. There you are. So the first part of your question is about what theme will support what may become a high volume discussion forum.
Yes.
And generally, it will be either a theme specifically devoted to being a discussion forum or one that is just very lightweight. So there are themes like Buddy Boss, which is specifically designed to power an online community.
Mm-hmm.
It definitely is server resource intensive, but basically once you get up to the amount of weight of handling an online community, you're going to be resource intensive.
Is it limited to just the online content, or I'm sorry, the forum comments, or is it flexible enough to do other types of functionality?
Sorry, my computer just being a little grumpy. So the Buddy Boss is basically billed as being a very easy to use for online communities. It has quite a number of different features, and if you go to their use cases, you can see that they have a lot of different use cases.
Got it. Okay.
So what would probably be a good place to start would be taking a look at the Buddy Boss use cases and seeing if what you are looking for might align with one of those.
Perfect. Perfect. Thank you.
So I think that answers the first part of your question. The second part of your question was regarding, I don't know of anything that is building specific.
Right. So let me clarify that just a little. And also let me just say thank you for having this forum. It's the first time I've joined anything like this, and I'm brand new with WordPress. So this is really helpful and I'm real appreciative. What I was thinking was almost like an online diary component where someone can make. Let me use the example of somebody who's building a race car or something like that. They could start out talking about how they purchased the vehicle and then the parts that they bought and the work that they've done, and they can share the progression of that. So maybe a diary is a better way of describing what I'm looking for.
Yes. So there are plugins that are specific to journaling,
Okay.
and there's also the option to basically just build your own with what's called a custom post type.
Mm-hmm.
And you basically just create this custom post type. There's several different plugins that can help you build it. You can also do it with a short snippet of PHP,
Mm-hmm.
but for
Okay.
most people that might not be an option. But CPT UI is pretty much the most known one. You'll see here it's got active installs of over 1 million.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll drop this into the chat.
Great. Okay.
So this one, basically you can create a custom post type to do pretty much whatever you want.
Perfect.
So you could call it, your journal.
Okay.
And as Eric just mentioned, that the plugin called Advanced Custom Fields
Mm-hmm.
is a very popular plugin. And what this does is it basically allows you to add all these different field types to your post types.
Okay.
So for example, you might want to, instead of just having in your race car example, maybe you wanted to be able to actually like list part numbers or brands and specifically have those itemized out as different fields so that they might be searchable in the future.
Got it. Okay, great.
You might want to assign specific fields to them. There's also some similar boxes or similar plugins like MetaBox,
Mm-hmm.
which also has a custom fields framework, and it has some other features as well. So there's a few different options available.
Okay, great. Thank you.
All right, the next person up is Joseph. So Joseph's question is, what is the fastest way to update a page or post that is in the classic editor to bring it into the block editor? And the basic answer there is to just, at the very top of a post that is in classic, you'll see a little convert to blocks, and then you just click convert to blocks and it does its best to convert it to blocks. Does that answer your question, Joseph?
Well, I think I tried that and it didn't work very well. Maybe because of the way the layout was in classic with, I think when I was doing posts 3-4 years ago for a client, I would try to do a right aligned photo and then a left aligned, sort of creating an S curve down the page with the text wrapping. And I think I tried converting to blocks, and then when I went and previewed it, the spacing was all screwy. And so what I had done after that experience, I just kind of went into, actually, I don't know, I did it just a month ago, just on one blog post, but I just started creating blocks and then copying and pasting material into them that way. So if there was a side-by-side text and photo, I would just create a column block, put the text left and the image right, and that sort of thing. But it's just really time consuming. And then there's a need to put in spacers between blocks and so on. So maybe there isn't really a quick, I mean, I could try convert to blocks again and look at it, and maybe then make adjustments from there. Maybe it's better to start. So at least I'm working in block editor and I have all my text and images there.
Yes. So as Eric said in the chat, basically a lot of things such as floating, divs, spans, and a whole bunch of things just don't convert very well when you convert from classic to block.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, there's just not really a great way to do it.
Yeah, so I've got a lot of blog posts and for this one client in classic, and I mean, I guess I just have to do the drudge work of changing, moving them. I mean, if we did a website redo, That in WordPress, that would not really help us out, would it? That stuff
Not
would
really.
still it would
Uh,
still have to be converted to block.
is there a specific reason why you are converting all of these posts? Do they look bad or something?
They look bad. I mean, it's
Okay.
partly because the web developer that my client has did some changes a couple of years ago, and she kind of wrecked the CSS. So, there's just images and text, and there's just not there's no visual design really. Things are kind of squashed together. So with the blog posts, she paid a little attention to the main pages, static pages, but the blog posts, some of them look really terrible. And I wouldn't go back and just fix them for aesthetics, but I'm at a point now with doing a content audit where
Mhm.
there are posts that I think have value content wise, but they're not performing. So I plan to go back in and do some rewriting and re-optimizing. And so in the process, to me, it seemed to make sense to bring them up to block editor so they'll also look good, which is, part of the conversion experience. I think if a page looks messy,
Mhm.
people go away.
Yes. Sometimes you can just work on some CSS fixes and kind of fix up some of the classic pages enough
Mhm.
to get you through. But as far as actually converting, no, everything kind of has to be manually fixed up, I've found.
Oh, boy. Okay. All right. Well, I think, in that case, I pick and choose, the most important content because
Mm-hmm.
it's a lot of work.
Yes.
I mean, is that something that would have to be done if we're redesigning the website, that the developer, the designer, or the developer would have to include that as part of their
So it
work
it
order?
kind of depends on how much work it needs and how much CSS it is.
Yeah.
I mean, typically it sounds like most of those old posts were built in a similar fashion, which means that most likely you could apply some CSS, which would just handle all of them.
Hmm. Hmm.
But I mean, a lot of people who say they are, designers and developers, they aren't actually that proficient with CSS.
Yeah, that may be the case with this person. Or else she just didn't really look at she didn't really look at her work, which she was doing.
Most people do not include a QA phase or quality assurance phase in their work, so they don't actually go through anything.
Yeah.
I have an assistant who I make go through all the pages,
Mm.
and you know what? She doesn't mind. She loves doing that kind of repetitive work. It's her personality. She's great at it.
Mm.
Would drive me nuts, but
Mhm.
she is in fact wonderful at it. So, but yes, someone has to check stuff. Someone has to go through stuff. Someone, especially if you have some older content and whatnot that you're going to have to write your own custom CSS to handle it.
Okay, well, that answers my question. I was hoping for a different answer, but it's kind of the way it is.
Mm-hmm. All right. We
When we
have,
get to the end of the questions, I actually have one quick and easy recommendation question, but I don't want to butt in front of someone else.
all right. We will go ahead and get to the chat now that we've finished with the pre-submitted questions. Let me scroll up. All right, Gustavo is asking about his website because of a plugin called WordFence. If you can't access your website because of the plugin called WordFence, then what you're going to need to do is go into the file system at your hosting company and delete the plugin from your plugins folder. That will deactivate it and get rid of it, and then you'll be able to access your site. Does that answer your question, Gustavo?
Sorry, good night. I am in Córdoba, Argentina, but I don't speak English.
Mm-hmm. My
Uh,
Spanish is very poor.
And my English is very poor. For
Do we
this,
have anyone in the group who's attending tonight who is fluent in both Spanish and English? If so, please speak up in the chat.
okay.
I'll just see if anyone is. Sometimes we do have someone who is fluent.
I write something in the chat.
Mm-hmm. Who is your hosting company? The name of your hosting company.
Not host.
Okay, excellent. Okay. Welcome to hosting, switch to English. Okay. So, do you see what I've highlighted here? This panel de control, cPanel?
Sí,
So,
okay.
cPanel?
Sí,
So you'll log into cPanel, and I can write this in the instructions.
okay.
Then you'll visit something called File Manager, and you'll go to WP Content, Plugins, and delete WordFence.
Sí,
And when you delete that, that will remove WordFence so you can access your site.
I understand.
Excellent. Let me just
Very,
check.
very thank you. Very,
Let
very
me
thank you.
let me
2
just check.
days that I cannot access to my web, mercadoyjusticia.com. I am thank you, very thank you.
So here I can quick show. This is a cPanel.
Sí,
So I click File Manager, then Public HTML, then WP Content, Plugins. In this list will be WordFence. You'll click WordFence, then delete.
okay, yes.
Yep. All right. Buena suerte.
Muchas gracias. Very thank you. Muchas gracias.
De nada. Our next question, just reading through, Ganesh. I hope I didn't butcher your name too badly. What is the best plugin to restrict access to certain pages to logged in only users based on roles and some to only admin? Is there a free plugin? Eric had replied recommending Paid Membership Pro. Ganesh is also looking for some user management and is using the AR member plugin. Another plugin that I have personally used quite a few times is this plugin called Groups. It's a very simple plugin. You basically assign WordPress users to specific groups, and then you just go to individual pages and assign that page to a group. All right, Ganesh, did you still have more questions after chatting with a few people in the chat?
Thank you. Yeah, I'm good at this time. Basically, I'm building a website for a non-profit organization, and I live in Washington, D.C. area, and just looking for it to reduce the expenses. Most of the plugins are like a yearly paid membership, and they are not in a position to pay. So first time I heard about the groups, of course, the paid membership pro, Eric suggested that, I'm aware of it. But when I try to expand it, the pro version is costing a lot. But he suggested me to use for the restriction. I will use that. But this groups membership, this is also, is that free?
The basic part of the plugin is free, which will handle assigning users into groups and then setting up specific posts and pages to just be visible to those groups. So I have used this on quite a few websites.
Sounds great. Thank you. So what about the membership? So all the logged in users can create and register their membership?
So it doesn't handle creating and registering memberships. That there are a lot of plugins to handle creating and registering memberships. It depends on what functionality you need.
Yeah, I just need a members to a nonprofit, as I mentioned, a community members, they log in, they register, and on a specific occasion, probably they'll buy tickets for an event or something. It's not a regular monthly membership or anything. If there is an event, probably they'll donate something or they'll buy some tickets and they'll register for it and they will attend. That's it.
Okay, then groups may be sufficient, and you can use WordPress's built-in registration system. WordPress has its own built-in member registration system. You can also create a very simple member registration form with one of the popular form builders. I believe Forminator will
Okay.
give you and this is this one. This plugin will allow you to make included with the free version, it'll allow you to create a user registration form. Don't remember if Fluent Forms includes that in their free version or not.
Sounds great. Thank you. I will
Mhm.
review this.
Okay, good luck to you.
Thank you.
Okay, next. Paul had asked a question regarding having a staging environment and a live environment. Paul, did you want to unmute and ask your question?
There we go. Yeah, thank you. Now that I'm just getting started to get this site built, at some point when I am live, there's going to be a lot of enhancements that are going to be made over time. And I was just inquiring about, do you do this through copies, or what's like best practice for having a place to try out new stuff?
So basically creating a staging site is great for trying out new things, but something to be aware of is while you have that staging site in existence, changes are happening on your live site to your database.
Okay.
So if someone has a very basic brochure site, there's typically so little going on with their site that it doesn't matter. But if you have something like a membership or forums or anything like that, e-commerce, event registrations, any of that kind of thing going on, then you have changes happening on your live database that won't be reflected in staging. So if you make a staging copy and then copy that back onto your live, you would wipe out those changes, which would be bad. So basically you can use staging to test things. But if you need to handle something like syncing up, I work with several e-commerce websites. So if I have to do some development work in staging, I will frequently take just the changes from staging and bring them back in.
Okay. So that answers it. It's not as robust as I thought it could potentially be.
A number of people have tried to work on the problem, but it's a very complicated problem.
Yeah.
And several large organizations have tried and abandoned it.
Okay. Good enough. Thanks.
Eric did mention in the chat that there's a plugin called WP Synchro, which may be able to do something. I haven't personally heard much about it.
Okay, great. Thank you.
All right, I think we are caught up on the chat. Did anyone else have any other questions? All right, Joseph, is there a reliable plugin that you can use to export a list of posts that includes everything that you want it to? Yes, there is. It is called WP All Import. And you can basically export CSV files of pretty much anything you want.
Well, is that for input? I wanted to export stuff from the site.
Yes, so the plugin is called WP All Import.
Okay.
When you purchase it, you get well, it depends on which package you purchase. I bought the Import Export Pro Lifetime one-time purchase, get everything, yay, which is Import Pro and Export Pro.
Mm.
And so that includes things like ACF fields, users, forms, e-commerce, and
Oh.
you can import and export.
What I was looking for was very specific and not kind of really for a one-time use, which would be to download information on the blog posts. So to help me do an audit and identify, especially with tracking what categories and keywords are being used. So I think when you're in the back end in the editor and you click on posts and you get that
Mhm.
list, basically I wanted to just be able to export that. I mean, I can get all the page titles and URLs from Search Console or some other place, but
Yes.
I
Well, I can give you a couple different answers.
Okay.
One is you can go directly to your database and run a MySQL query and export whatever you want. That might not be the answer you want, though.
yeah, 'cause that's
There
beyond my
are
ability.
probably, you know, it's kind of one of those things. This plugin does it all.
Mhm.
And so therefore it's my go-to for doing it all. But there are other plugins available in the repository, which will do things like export various different things.
Mhm.
You might need to look through some different plugins and see what you can find, but there are a few different plugins out there which do some importing and exporting
Mhm.
into friendlier formats like CSV. Then that answer your question?
Mhm.
Okay, great. All right, next up in the order is Eric has commented, Twitter suspends WordPress.com's access to Twitter API, breaking Jetpack. Oh, that's nice. Hey, Eric, did you want a quick comment on why you shared that?
I know a lot of people use Jetpack specifically for the social sharing.
Mm-hmm.
And this is just kind of a heads up as to why it's another reason why it's going to stop working.
Yeah, I don't use Jetpack.
Neither do I. But I know a lot of people do. Just kind
Yes.
of a helpful tidbit of information.
Thank you for sharing that. Okay, next up is Ganesh. He's asking, outside of this call, if I want to talk to anyone for help, is there a way to reach out? That is actually in my slides. Yes. In my slides, we have getting WordPress help. If you need help outside of meetup times, we have a meetup information page with a bunch of info on it. And I will put this link in the chat. Paul has asked, that is Paul P. Go ahead and I'll ask you to unmute.
Yeah, I was just asking if you could comment just a tiny bit more about your company, and are you a single entity or do you have a staff, and just a little bit about what you can do. I'm assuming you can build pretty much anything. Is that pretty much what your company provides services for, building out like WordPress sites and so forth?
Yes. So the primary service that I offer is the worry-free WordPress care and maintenance plans.
Okay.
And the answer that most people ask is, why do I need one? And the number one answer that I have gotten from my clients is because they like to sleep at night. They like to sleep at night without having worries. And one of the best testimonials I had gotten from a client was on a Zoom call, and she said, because of you, I have had my first good night of sleep in 2 months.
Okay, I believe
So the short answer of what I do is I work with small companies as well as large corporations, helping out with handling their WordPress maintenance, keeping their website up and running, monitoring their website to make sure that things are up and running. I am very active in a number of WordPress online groups, such as So one of the online groups is called the Admin Bar, and it's been voted a couple years running the #1 online WordPress community. And for 2022, I was voted basically the #1 member of the #1 WordPress community.
Okay.
So I do have a couple of people who work part-time for me as contractors. They're both in the US and they both have been working for me for quite a while,
Mhm.
helping out with various different things.
Okay. And if someone wanted to provide you with a set of requirements and wanted you to build their site end to end, is that something that you can do?
Yes, I
Okay.
also have worked for many years, white label for several different SEO and marketing companies,
Okay.
and do everything from their maintenance to new builds to a whole lot of diagnosing incoming clients who have a complete and total mess
Yeah, I can
and
imagine.
fixing it.
Okay, great. Thank you.
All right, the next question. Eric is also giving a big thumbs up for the admin bar, which you can visit at theadminbar.com. And I'll drop that link into the chat. Greta has a question about WordPress slugs and changing page titles for SEO purposes. Hi, Greta, if you want to unmute.
I think I'm unmuted now, am I?
You are. We can hear
Okay.
you.
Okay. I had a website built, a WordPress site, and I just had basic page titles.
Mhm.
The site was about was focusing on asking people to buy American-made products.
Mhm.
But my pages initially said home, contact us, product directory, resource directory. But
Mhm.
then I read a book, a detailed book on SEO optimization, search engine optimization. And one of the things it said to do was to put more information in the page titles. So I
Mhm.
went back in my page titles, like where I said product directory as a page title, I changed it to product directory / buying American-made products creates more jobs. Okay.
Mhm.
But when I visited the website, it doesn't reflect the new page titles. So
In the
going back,
title of the page or in the
yeah,
slug
like
of
in
the
the
page?
in the URL.
So by default, it won't change any of your URLs because that could harm anyone who has a link to your website.
Oh,
So by default, WordPress won't change any of what's called the slug, which is the part in the URL. It won't change that because it doesn't want to modify your live URLs.
I
So if
spent
you
a lot of
want to
time.
if you want to modify the live URLs, you should do two things. First, you'll want to create what's called a 301 redirect to your new URL, and then you can modify the URL.
Should I even bother? Is that a good SEO practice, or does it matter if it shows
So
up in the
it-
URL?
It depends. Keywords in the URL can have an impact on SEO. It depends on exactly what keywords you're trying to target. If your page is very heavily trying to target a whole bunch of keywords that all say American made, then having American made in the URL can be of benefit.
So that's what I set out to do on all of my pages. I renamed them and put, keywords that were relative to American made. And
Yes, but putting American made into many different URLs will actually kind of dilute the effect.
but I didn't always use American made. That was just an example on one page. I went in
Okay.
and put USA made in. I mean, I switched up USA for America in some places and American made. I switched it up. They didn't all just say American made, but I don't know if it was worth it now.
So the actual page title, which is what you changed, can
Yes.
definitely have an impact on SEO independent of the page slug.
Even if it doesn't show up in the URL when the
Correct.
person visits. Oh, okay. Okay. Well, that's good to know. It wasn't a total.
Yeah, I have a friend, BJ Bowen, who does SEO. And yes, she will frequently test several different page titles without making any changes to the page slug to see what kind of impact that has on the SEO results.
So that's picked up by the search engines, even though the public doesn't see it if you change it.
The
search
public
engines
does
don't.
see it. It's at the top of the page, this text up here. That is the page title.
You mean in the browser or?
Yes. In the browser, it is actually called the page title. There is a tag. Let me turn on line wrapping.
So now I'm a bit confused. I thought you said it won't change it in the browser if I went back and changed.
It doesn't change the URL. That doesn't mean it doesn't change the HTML of the website.
Oh,
So see here, I've highlighted the title tag. And what it will do is it will change this tag, which is part of the page. And depending on what you have going on the page, it can also frequently change your H1 tag, which is very important to SEO. So changing up this title and the corresponding H1 tags on the site can definitely make an impact to SEO. And I do know several SEO people who will test out several different titles and H1s to see which one works better.
all right. Thank you.
All right, we have caught up with the chat. Does anyone else have any questions? Oh, Greta has another question.
You sent out, I really appreciate you sending out the group notice where you warned us about Elementor Pro. Can you elaborate a little bit on what that was about, what's happening? Because I had just finished building a website using the free version, but.
So again, I tried to clarify in the email, it was for Elementor Pro, not Elementor Free.
I understood that, but I just
Okay.
wanted to find out what's going on with Pro, so I won't get it. I mean, is it something that's just?
Basically what happens is when you have a very large plugin like Elementor Pro, you end up with many, many, many people working on the source code, right?
Okay.
They are a rather decently sized company now. They have many different programmers there. And what happens is someone makes a mistake and it doesn't get caught in QA, it doesn't get caught in testing, and it makes it to production.
So I'll just stay away from that anyway. I was just curious. I just like to know what's going on out there in the tech world.
Yes. Basically what happens is that someone added some code, they tried to probably add another feature, and then they didn't properly handle the security on that code. And that made it through testing and it made it through into production without being caught by the company.
Okay. All right. Thank you. It's good to know. I like being informed.
Oh, good. Also, if anyone is interested, there are a couple of newsletters out there that you can subscribe to if you want to receive information regularly about what's going on in terms of security and security issues.
Yeah, that would be great.
I think PatchStack has a mailing list. It's usually on their blog. Okay, well, I can't find it, so we'll go to the next place that probably has it. So wordfence.com, I know, does have a regular email list. They have this Get WordPress Security Alerts and Product Updates list. And in this, they do regular roundups of plugins that have had security issues and or themes that have had security issues. So if you want to get a regular email, you can subscribe to their email list.
Oh, okay, great.
All right.
Thank you.
Does anyone else have any other questions?
I can ask another one. Nobody else.
Sure.
And you already talked about this, but I didn't really know how to put my question. When you were talking about staging, I didn't
Mhm.
understand why it wasn't good to have a staging site, because I have a staging site I'm rebuilding a site, and I didn't want to mess up the HTML site that's already out there.
Mhm.
So it was recommended that I start a WordPress staging site so I could work on WordPress.
Okay, so if you have an HTML site, that means that no changes are happening on that HTML site,
Because of the
right?
data, it's no database.
There's no database. So no changes are happening. So you're not worried about people, making changes. So for example, when I deal with e-commerce websites, they have purchases that are happening on a regular basis, or at least we hope they're happening on a regular basis. And they don't want to lose any of that transaction data. So frequently, if I work on a new feature for them, I will end up taking an evening time slot and then moving just what I need for that new feature into their live site with, of
Oh,
course, many backups, because
Okay.
backups are wonderful.
So once I take the staging site and clone it over to HTML site, existing site. and
Yeah, so if you
was
have an
this-
existing HTML site, you don't have changes happening to it. I mean, unless you're, going in and modifying the contents of the HTML pages, in which case you would know that they're being modified and you could make a corresponding update on the staging site that you were developing.
Okay, that part I understand. So once I finish the WordPress staging site and I clone it to replace the HTML site that's there, so then the site's going to be WordPress. So back in my staging
Correct.
site, when I'm making changes, you're
So
saying it's going to affect the new WordPress site that's live?
So once you make the WordPress site live, does your WordPress site that's live, most of the time, what people do, they maybe make some content changes to a few pages, they maybe add new pages or add new blog posts. That kind of content update you do normally just on your live site.
Oh, really?
Yes.
So if I do that and then go back and work in staging, the changes that I made to the live site aren't going to be in my staging site, right?
Correct. So typically most basic websites don't have a staging. Most I have a lot of what I call brochure websites, and these are websites that just display information. They don't have any sort of e-commerce or events or membership going on. We just periodically update some of the page content or add new blog posts. We don't actually modify a lot about the website. So those websites normally don't have any staging environment. The only time they would ever have a staging environment is if they were getting a remodel.
Okay. So you're recommending that I don't use a staging site?
If you have a simple brochure site, I rarely ever have a staging environment up for them because there's not much to stage. As long as your website is being backed up regularly, that's pretty much all the insurance I need.
So while I'm working on the live site, how am I? So I don't publish it, I just preview it until I'm done
You just save it as a draft until you're ready for it to go live.
and then publish it.
Mhm.
All righty, that answered that. It seems like I've wasted a lot of time doing things I didn't need to do. Okay.
All right. Well, good luck to you.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay. Well, I haven't seen any other questions come through, so we're going to go ahead and get ready to wrap for this evening. Again, if you are looking for help outside of meetup times, please take a look at our meetup page. And our next meetup is scheduled for May 11th at 7 p.m. It will be a mini website audits for Global Accessibility Awareness Day. In case you aren't familiar, the U.S. Department of Justice has put out a notice saying that websites should in fact be accessible to all people, not just those with good motor and vision. So we're going to talk about website accessibility, and we will be doing some mini audits. You can go visit our Meetup page, which I just put the link in the chat. And on the Meetup page, you'll see that there is a form. This is a Google form, and you can pop in your URL that you would like to submit for the mini audits. So make sure to sign up for the mini audits and also put your URLs in if you would like to have your website given a mini audit. All right, good night, everyone, and I hope you have a good rest of the week.